The half was not told to me. 6 words, 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 7. She said them when she arrived at Solomon's court. After the journey, after the caravan, after the months of desert, after she had seen what was there to see and understood what there was to understand. 6 words, and they are the most revealing sentence in the entire story, because they are hers. Everything else in 1 Kings chapter 10 is description from the outside. Solomon's gold, his palace, his throne of ivory covered in the finest gold, with 6 steps and a footstool and 2 lions standing beside the armrests and 12 lions standing along the steps. All of it observed and recorded. But this sentence is what she said, her private assessment of the situation spoken aloud. And she said, "The half was not told to me." She was the most powerful woman in the ancient world. She ruled a kingdom that controlled the world's most valuable trade routes. She had heard the reports from 1,000 miles away and found them difficult to believe. So she came herself. And when she arrived and saw, she said, "The half was not told to me." What was in that court that exceeded the reports by half? What had she heard that was already extraordinary, and then found to be less than the reality? I have been sitting with that sentence for a long time, and I think I finally understand what she came for, and what she found. She was, by any standard, not someone who needed anything. The kingdom she ruled, Sheba, called Saba in the old South Arabian inscriptions, Sabea in the Greek accounts, controlled the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the choke point between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Every ship moving spices, incense and exotic goods from India and Arabia to Egypt and the Mediterranean had to pass through her territory. She did not just trade in frankincense and myrrh, she owned the supply. 1 Kings chapter 10 verse 10, "Never again came such abundance of spices as the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Never before, never after." This was not an exaggeration. It was an economic fact. She was the source. And then there is the gold. 1 Kings chapter 10 verse 2. 120 talents of gold. One biblical talent, the Hebrew kikar, is approximately 34 kilograms. 120 talents is 4,080 kilograms of gold. At current prices, that is somewhere between 400 million and 640 million US dollars. Before the first word was spoken, before she asked a single question, before Solomon had demonstrated anything. She arrived with $400 million in gold as an opening gesture. That tells you how important the question was. Let me tell you what she brought besides gold. 1 Kings chapter 10 verse 1. She came with a very great company, and with camels bearing spices, and very much gold and precious stones. She also brought what 2 Chronicles calls algum trees, a rare exotic timber, possibly red sandalwood, used for Solomon's temple balustrades and for musical instruments. He had never seen anything like it. But the most significant thing she brought is in the second half of verse 1, and most English translations do not render it accurately. 1 Kings 10 verse 1 in Hebrew. The Standard English reads, "And she heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord." But the Hebrew does not say fame concerning the name. The Hebrew construction is le-shem, YHWH, concerning the name of God, not his reputation connected to the name itself as the reason she came. This is not a translation error, it is a translation choice, and the choice has hidden something important for centuries. The ancient world did not regard the name of God as a title, it was a key. Egyptian temple priests guarded secret divine names that they believed gave access to the power of specific gods. Babylonian incantation texts, some of the oldest written documents in human history, are built around the principle that knowing the true name of a spiritual being gives you power over it. In Hebrew priestly tradition, the Tetragrammaton, the 4-letter name of God, was so sacred that it was never pronounced aloud. The high priest spoke it once a year in the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur. Once, in a whisper, in the darkest room on earth. The belief was not metaphorical. The belief was precise. The name was a key to reality. Whoever knew it could speak to the force that governs the universe in its own language. Solomon was reported to have that name, or at least a privileged relationship with it. And the Queen of Sheba, 1,000 miles away, heard this and left her throne. That is what le-shem Yahweh means. She came for the name. Now let me tell you about the riddles. 1 Kings chapter 10 verse 1. She came to test Solomon with hard questions. The Hebrew word is chidot, hidvot, usually translated as riddles. But in the ancient Near East, a chida was not a puzzle for entertainment. In the wisdom schools of Babylonia and Egypt, riddles were initiatory tests, a way of determining whether a person had genuine access to the hidden order of things, the structure of reality beneath its surface. The wise man was not the man who had memorized the most facts. He was the man who could see through appearances. The Bible does not record what the riddles were, but the Talmudic and Midrashic traditions do. The Targum Sheni, an Aramaic commentary on the Book of Esther, compiled in the early medieval period from much older oral traditions, preserves 3 of them. Here is the first. 7 there are that issue, and 9 that enter. 2 yield the draught, and 1 drinks. Take a moment with that. It sounds like a riddle about numbers. It is not. Solomon's answer: 7 are the days of a woman's menstrual separation. 9 are the months of pregnancy. 2 are the breasts that yield the draught. 1 is the child that drinks, a riddle about the mechanics of life itself, not about politics or philosophy or scripture, about the precise hidden process by which a human being enters the world. She was testing whether Solomon understood the architecture of creation, the sequence of states, the passage from potential to life, whether his wisdom was real or only wide. The second riddle in the Targum Sheni. A woman said to her son, "Your father is my father, your grandfather is my husband, you are my son, and I am your sister." Solomon's answer: the daughters of Lot, who became pregnant by their own father after the destruction of Sodom in Genesis chapter 19. This riddle requires knowledge of the most tangled genealogical knot in the Hebrew Bible and the capacity to hold multiple contradictory relationships in mind simultaneously without losing the thread. Our third riddle, preserved in the Yemenite Midrash HaHefez: an enclosure with 10 doors. When 1 is open, 9 are shut. When 9 are open, 1 is shut. Solomon's answer: the human body. 9 natural orifices, and the navel, sealed at birth, the portal through which life first entered. She was not testing him on facts. She was testing whether he could see the body as a spiritual architecture, whether he understood that the structures of creation were self-similar at every scale. The body mirrors the cosmos mirrors the body. He answered every riddle, every one. 1 Kings chapter 10 verse 3. And Solomon answered all her questions. There was nothing hidden from the king that he could not explain to her. Nothing hidden, not a single one he could not explain. I want to tell you about the moment she saw the demonstration, because there was a demonstration. And it is in the Quran, Surah 27. An-Naml, the ant, is the most detailed account of the Queen of Sheba in any ancient text. Longer than 1 Kings, more specific. And it preserves something that the Hebrew Bible does not. In Surah 27, Solomon has already received reports of the queen from his hoopoe bird, the hudhud, who had flown over her kingdom and returned with news. I found a woman ruling over them. She has been given of all things, and she has a mighty throne. Solomon sends her a letter. The letter begins, "In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful." She consults her advisors. They are willing to fight. She is not. She sends gifts instead, testing whether he can be bought. Solomon rejects them entirely, and then she comes. She is on her way to Jerusalem, and Solomon turns to his court with a question. Surah 27 verse 38. "O assembly of jinn, which of you will bring me her throne before they come to me in submission?" A powerful jinn, an ifrit, responds immediately, "I will bring it to you before you rise from your place, and indeed, I am for this strong and trustworthy." A throne the size of a royal palace, in a kingdom 1,000 miles away, before Solomon stands up. Verse 40. Said one who had knowledge of the book, "I will bring it to you, before your glance returns to you." Before your glance returns to you. The time it takes for your eyes to complete a single blink, and the throne was there. Standing in Solomon's court, in Jerusalem, instantaneous, not fast, instantaneous. Islamic scholarship has spent 14 centuries identifying who this person was. The majority position held by Ibn Abbas, the companion of the Prophet who is considered the father of Quranic interpretation and confirmed by Ibn Kathir and Al-Tabari, is that this was not a jinn. This was a human being. His name, Asif ibn Barkhiya, Solomon's vizier, his scribe, his closest advisor, a man, and the mechanism he used was precise. He knew the Ism al-Azam, the greatest name of God. Specifically, he knew one letter of it. Here is where it becomes extraordinary. The Shia Hadith collection, Kitab al-Kafi, transmitted through Imam Hassan al-Askari, records the following. The greatest name of Allah has 73 letters. Asif ibn Barkhiya knew only one letter of it. And through that one letter, he was able to bring the throne across the earth in the blink of an eye. We, the al-Bayt, the family of the Prophet, know 72 of those letters. One letter remains known only to Allah. 73 letters. One moved a throne instantaneously. 72 are held by the Prophet's family. One is held by God alone. The Queen of Sheba crossed a desert to find out if Solomon had access to this. He did, and he demonstrated it in front of her. She saw a man speak a portion of the name of God and watch physics rearrange itself. That is what le-shem YHWH means. That is what she came for. That is the secret. The demonstration was not finished. When the queen arrived at Solomon's court, she was brought into a palace with a floor of polished glass. She thought it was water. She lifted her garments. Quran 27 verse 44. Solomon said, "It is a palace paved smooth with glass." And she said, "This is the sentence of a woman whose entire certainty about the world has just been dismantled. My lord, I have wronged myself. I submit, with Solomon, to God." This was not a theatrical trick. The glass floor was a theological argument. She had been worshipping the sun, the most undeniable, most visible, most impossible to ignore thing in existence. And here was proof that what she could see with her own eyes, standing on solid ground, was completely wrong. The floor that looked like a bottomless pool was glass. The sun she worshipped as the highest power was created by the same name that had just moved her throne across a continent. If you can be wrong about the floor beneath your feet, what else have you been wrong about? The throne was the proof, the floor was the question. She submitted. I need to tell you what happened after she left Jerusalem, because this is where the story becomes a story about Africa. The Kebra Nagast, the Glory of Kings, is a 14th century Ethiopian text compiled from much older Coptic and Syriac sources by YHWH of Aksum. It was written to establish the legitimacy of the restored Solomonic dynasty of Ethiopia. Her name in Ethiopia is Makeda. According to the Kebra Nagast, she did not return to Ethiopia alone. She carried Solomon's child, conceived through a trap involving a cup of water and an oath. She knew this before she left. Solomon gave her a ring so the child could identify himself to his father. The child's name was Menelik. History knows him as Menelik I. When Menelik was a young man, he traveled to Jerusalem. Solomon recognized him the moment he arrived, by the ring and by the face. He had his grandfather David's face. Solomon wept. He tried to keep Menelik in Jerusalem to rule after him. Menelik refused. He was going back to his mother's country. Solomon agreed, but decreed that the firstborn sons of all his counselors and priests would travel back with Menelik. Among those firstborn sons, Azariah, son of Zadok the high priest. Here is what happened before they left. Azariah had a dream. An angel told him, "Bring the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia." He and the other firstborn sons entered the temple. They went into the Holy of Holies, the room that even the high priest could only enter once a year, on Yom Kippur. They removed the Ark. They replaced it with a wooden replica. The Kebra Nagast says something that I cannot explain but cannot dismiss. It says the Ark cooperated. It became light in their hands. It aided its own removal. It wanted to go. The caravan left Jerusalem with the Ark hidden among their wagons. The Ark's power, according to the text, made the wagons travel as if lifted from the ground. The entire company was filled with inexplicable joy. God told Solomon in a dream, "Do not grieve. I gave it to those whom I love." Solomon was left in Jerusalem with a replica Ark, a dynasty that would fracture and the memory of the most extraordinary meeting of his life. The real ark was on its way to Ethiopia. Because of her. Because of one woman's journey to ask one question. I have been to Aksum, not recently. During my research years, when I was tracking the Solomonic manuscript tradition across Ethiopia, visiting monasteries, talking to priests about the Kebra Nagast and the Beta Israel oral histories. The Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion is not a dramatic building from the outside. The old church, built in the 17th century over an older structure, sits in a compound that has the feel of a place that has been continuously sacred for a very long time. You can feel that. I don't say that lightly. The chapel of the tablet is separate from the main church, a smaller building. The official position of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, 80 million believers, is that the Ark of the Covenant is inside that chapel. Not a replica, not a symbol, the Ark. There is one guardian monk inside. He was appointed for life. He cannot leave the chapel compound for any reason. Ever again. He is the only person in the world permitted to see the Ark. Not the Patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, not the Archbishop, not a visiting dignitary, no one, only him. When I was there, I was permitted as far as the outer enclosure. The chapel was perhaps 50 meters away. I stood at that boundary for a while, which I recognize is not a very scholarly thing to say, but I did. The guardian monk appeared briefly at the entrance. He was not young. He looked at no one in particular. Then he went back inside. I thought about what it means to spend your entire life guarding a secret. You are not permitted to fully examine yourself. He lives inside the boundary of the sacred without being able to fully enter it. I thought, that is what the Queen started. Her journey, her question, her child's journey. The Ark in the wagon. 3,000 years of consequence, beginning with one woman who heard a rumor about the name of God and decided she had to know if it was true. She said, the half was not told to me. She said it when she arrived and understood for the first time that what she had been told, already extraordinary enough to justify months of desert travel and $400 million in gold, was less than the reality. By half. I have tried to imagine what she expected before she arrived. I cannot. I can only go by what she said when she got there. What she took back with her is still in Ethiopia, in a chapel that 50 meters is as close as most human beings will ever get, guarded by a man who cannot leave, praying before something he rarely looks at directly. The secret she came for, le-shem, YHWH, the name, is preserved in fragments across traditions. One fragment is in the Hebrew text, in the construction of a single verse. One is in the Quran, in Surah 27, in a throne that moved before a single blink could complete itself. One is in the Shia tradition, in a count 73 letters, 72 known, one withheld. One is in the Kebra Nagast, in a child who grew up in Ethiopia and came back for the most sacred object his father possessed. And one is in the chapel in Aksum, in a man who cannot leave and rarely looks directly at what he guards. Solomon answered all her questions. There was nothing hidden from the king that he could not explain to her. She left. She said, the half was not told to me. She had everything when she arrived. She left with the rest of it. What you do with the fragments that remain is your question to carry. The same one she carried across the desert, the same one she brought home.